So I'm back. I'm making another video on the Blazer, and the reason why it's been a while since I haven't made a video is because I sold the Blazer. The previous owner called me up and asked me if I wanted to sell it, and I said no, not really. But we agreed on a price, and he wanted to have it back because it was going to be a father-son build for him and his oldest son. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I remember working on the Corvette with my dad and doing a lot of projects here and there, and a lot of good memories there. So I said, all right, I'll sell it back to you. So made a tiny bit of money on the deal, but anyways, I got a new one. I got an 84, and it took a little while to find something good, but I finally got one. So we'll show you that here in a minute. It needs a bunch of little things here and there, but it's an 84. It's got a big block. It's got upgraded axles, and it's a 3-speed manual, which I wasn't super excited about in the beginning, but I don't really drive it that often and that far to go to work, so it's all right. So I'll show you that here in a minute, because I have to do a whole bunch of stuff with the tailgate, and I'll show you what's going on with that because I found some surprises inside. So we're going to get to that here in just a second. So the rear tailgate on this one is a manual. It's not electric, which I'm kind of okay with. I can always probably upgrade it to an electrical later on, but for now I'm just going to fix what needs to be fixed and not try and dump a bunch of money into it. So as you can see, when you buy a vehicle from someone else, you're going to find some surprises. The window crank would spin, but the window wouldn't roll up or down, and the previous owner, the widow that I bought it from, she had no idea about any history about the vehicle, and that's okay, that happens. But as you can see, they put the window up and they propped it up with 2x4s. So the good part is I have the window regulator. It's right here. It's pretty old and yucky looking, but it works. I've tested it, and a new regulator is $100. So I'm going to just replace the rivets, or the rollers, because as you can see, they spin not very well, but they've got some flat spots on them, and the new rivets from LMC are pretty inexpensive. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace those rivet rollers, and I'm going to clean up the regulator a little bit. And I bought a bunch of parts from LMC, and luckily I've got all the parts in here. I've got the window, I've got the cams that go on the rollers. Probably should clean them up and grease them a little bit too, but as you can see, they're there. They got the bolts. I got all the bolts that mount this into the tailgate. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the window down so I can get this rear tailgate open. And you need to be careful because, like I did with the other one, I had the tailgate down with the window up, and I ended up shattering that one. And I had to get a new one from LMC, and that was $140. And just an FYI, they have one and it says green tint. It really doesn't look that green. It's not like you're going to get it and you're going to put it in and be like, wow, that thing is green. Because it's not. You really barely even notice it. So I was pretty happy with that one. This one's all scratched to hell, and I'm probably just going to leave it because I'm not going to make a show winner out of this. I'm not going to paint it up all fancy. I'm not going to mess with any of that stuff. So first things first, I'm going to get the regulator out of my way. And I'm going to try to get this window to come down as gently as possible without breaking anything. All right, there we go. So now that I've got this open, I need to do a bunch of cleaning in here because this inside and the bottom is just, it's full of garbage and junk. I'm going to replace this handle because I've got a new one, and while I'm here, I'm going to just do it all. And I've got a new seal for the handle on the outside. So
this thing has just got a little plastic clip, and I'll show you. I'll probably have to show you the new ones, because of course this one just broke off. In Phoenix, we got to worry about all the plastic and the rubber dry rotting, because it just, the heat just kills it, just absolutely kills it, and then there's nothing left. So just gonna break this thing the rest of the way off. Yeah, so I've got new connectors for those. I've got new insulator pads for these too. The new rubber, just to keep that from bouncing on the glass and scratching it and smacking it. So we got that next. I'm pretty sure I got a new piece of weather stripping for it, because this one's shot as well. It's just literally crumbling into nothingness. So I'm going to take the screws out that are down in here to get the outside handle off, and then I'm going to take this inside handle and replace it, and that's just got 2 Phillips screws there. So that looks like 7/16 is what I'm thinking. So you get those out. And also I've taken the window out. I took off the seal that's on for the window. The exterior one was completely gone. They're both gone, but I'm just going to replace the outside one for now. But I had to take the window out, so again, you got to be super careful when you're taking that window out so you don't shatter that thing. All right, so let's get this handle off. Looks like not sure what that's about, but we'll figure that out. That was loose too. I have a feeling this truck sat for a couple years before it finally got to me. I see a lot of stuff that's just kind of been not ignored, but forgotten about. So there's your handle, there's your keyhole. You can replace this whole lock cylinder if you need to. I'm hoping that mine still functions with the key. I don't have to get a new cylinder and a new key, because you literally have to take all this stuff apart to replace that lock cylinder. Alright, so get that out. Get this handle. It's going to connect there. Where else is it connected? Probably gonna have to. So you might have to take this whole thing out. Another good thing I kind of neglected already is I like to take pictures with my cell phone of where everything is, how this is oriented. It's kind of easy because you've got your 3 holes here, here, and here, and your 3 holes there. But there are some times when you get some mechanisms or some pieces that you take out and then you go, oops, I don't know how that goes back in there. And it's a lot more work than it's worth to try and sit there and figure it out when you can literally just take your cell phone and take pictures of it. So we got that mechanism out. This pin goes through this piece. So let me get myself a screwdriver. I'll put a little awesome. Put a little PB blaster on there and see if we can't get those 2 to loosen up. And this bar connects here. I'm not quite sure how that connects, so we might end up having to leave that. That looks like it's got some kind of a pin. Okay. Well, let's let that sit. I've got a little Loctite left over. It's a different kind, but it's been working for everything else. Just get a little bit on there. Get that down there finger tight. And what you do, don't go on the top nut, you go on, or the bottom nut, you go on the top nut and use that. And if you can see it, you can see we're spinning the whole stud down in there. I don't want to get her too low. I don't want to get it too low that I can't get a nut on once I get this out of the truck. We can measure that and say that one is, it's like 5/8, and that one's just a hair under that. So I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to let that seal. Let's see if I can get this nut off. We're still moving the whole thing, aren't we? Alright. Let's do this, and let's do this. Good. Well, that's obviously what they did. They just had this stud that probably got backed out. Could you get it back on? And this one's got the lock washer on it. So I'm going to find a new lock washer. And go on that one. Yep, there we go. So as you can see, we got the regulator out. These are the rivets. They don't spin very well, and they're, like I said, you can see they've kind of got some flat spots on them there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill them out, and I'm going to put the new ones in that it came from LMC. That'll go in there like that, and then you'll just take this part and you'll basically just, they call it painting it out, but basically just gonna put an X in there and then smash it down, get it to stick in place. So get this one out of the way first. All right, so let this thing drilled out a little bit. Just see if we can pop off. Yep, there we go. Got the old one out there. And the new one is just gonna go like this into here. I wonder if I can get that in a little bit farther. Well, that looks like that's about right. Now, just have to find something solid to put this on. So let's try this. Try. It looks like it worked. So what we're going to do, we'll use this chisel to get it to flatten out. As we can see, I split it out, hammered it down, and it's not loose in there, but the wheel is spinning, as you can see. So we're just going to repeat the process on the other side. Alright, so this is the old handle. This bar that connects to the latch, it's got like a little pin, like a beveled head there, and it basically goes through here and snaps in with this little clip that goes around it. So I had to kind of bend that one out. Oh, by the way, I took this all out as one piece. I was able to finagle this out of the hole without taking this off because I didn't want to damage this retainer clip and not have one to put back on there. So that's on there. Got this all out as one unit. I just bent this tab out a little bit, just enough to get it off. The replacement one has a new tab, but I didn't know that and I didn't really want to take the chance. So this thing's just gonna snap right into place like that. And then this one will connect to the other part of the lock mechanism that pulls the two bars that are connected to the latches on the outer sides. So next we're gonna go do that and get that hooked up. One thing I forgot to show you also is this lock cylinder looks like it's functioning properly. I had to get a new clutch and a new retainer clip here to put back on this, and then once this goes on, these two pieces that stick out are what are going to connect to the window regulator and turn it. So when you're cranking the window, you're essentially turning this. So let me get this thing out of here. You can see right along here there's a little ring. That's where this clip is going to snap into, but that's after we get the clutch on. Pretty sure if I remember correctly, it needs to be in this orientation, because this spring-loaded pawl is what will need to be, I believe it's going through this area here. So once that's out, it should work like that. But you know what, let me get the keys first. Let's see if this will actually turn it. So it should be, yeah, as you can see here, the key is in there in the lock cylinder, and you can see the pawl sticks in and out. You can see that from, I believe that's going to be unlocked, and that should be, no, that should be unlocked, because that's going to let you spin it, and this is going to be locked because that clutch should just spin around in there freely, which is basically in a sense doing this. So we should be good there. So let's put this back here in the vise. This should go on like that. We're going to put our little C-clip on here. It's a little bit difficult, but you should be able to just lightly tap this thing in. Yep, that should be all we need right there, because that's locked into place. That's not going to let this clip out. You know, there we go. That looks a whole lot better. So in a sense, this should be unlocked. Put the key in like that, turn it, and as you can see then, well, that's turning that too, isn't it? That's our problem. We don't want it to spin all the time. So right now, yeah, there we go. This is still going to spin like that without moving the regulator. So that should be the locked position, because this is just going to spin freely even if you turn the handle. So it should be good there. Good. So let's get our screw or nuts and our new handle, and we're going to put these in. One thing I was noticing when I was turning this is this whole mechanism kind of flops around in there a little bit. And I figured there's some kind of a locking ring that needs to go in there. And I found it when I was cleaning out the truck. When I was cleaning out the bed, inside of it, because it was full of junk, there is a washer, and you can see how it's kind of wavy. It's kind of like a tension washer, and that's there to hold this mechanism in place, keep it from bouncing around. So I have a feeling it needs to go down on here. That's my guess. It needs to go down underneath this ring that's here. So I guess we're gonna have to end up taking this thing apart. So after a whole bunch of work I took to get that lock washer off, so I got that off. I put that kind of that wavy one in there to kind of help put some tension on it, and got that back on. Replaced the clutch and the spring on there. If you remember, this was very, very wobbly. It's still kind of wobbly, but it's a lot better than it was before. So now that we've got this on, we got our Loctite on there. That feels pretty good, this one. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go put this back in. It did come with a new piece. Okay, so I've got my new weather stripping that's gonna go on the exterior of the truck against the chrome part of the handle, and this came with a new piece of weather stripping that can go in here. Put that on there. Beautiful. Probably gonna take some manipulating. There we go. Gonna get this thing to fit back in there where she's supposed to. And our new screws, or screws we got to come out, which is a good thing because it was a pain in the butt. Save yourself a trip to the hardware store. You have to get a new couple of screws. It's a good idea. So what I ended up using was an impact driver. And it's not very expensive, but this thing comes with different tips. And you can use it to loosen or tighten. But if you got some screws that don't come out, you literally just hold it, you hit it with the hammer, and it will loosen those screws at the same time and kind of break them loose. Because I couldn't break them loose with just a plain old screwdriver. So that thing loosened them up just enough. Just enough to get them off. Just snug enough for now. That part's done. Now, that bar is going to go through this hole here. We need to get that fit through that hole. And then I can put these screws back in place. Again, that's a good idea to get them all in and like almost finger tight, just right to where you want them. And then you can kind of manipulate it and move it around enough to where it's easy to tighten them all up. Now, it should be working just fine. Yep. Next thing I'm gonna do, actually, I'm gonna take a little break because I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna vacuum all of this crud out of here and get that all cleaned up, so that's one less thing I have to worry about. I got a new rubber gasket because I figured since we're taking all this stuff apart and putting all new stuff back on, wouldn't hurt to put a whole new gasket on here. Okay, it's got a little bit of a bevel to it, so I think should be going on like this. Yeah, should be going on that, on like that. So what I'm gonna do, what I ended up doing is I flipped that around. You can see this is kind of beveled, so the thin side is right here, and the fatter side is toward the bottom. That's the correct one, because when you look at the clutch on the inside, the clutch is sticking straight up, because the other way it was at too much of an angle. So I had to switch that around, and that's the correct orientation there. So that should be all good there. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put our new rubber pieces on the arms here, so they don't beat on the glass and scratch them all to hell. That one there. Anywhere right there in the middle. Then I got our new clips. So what's going to happen is they're going to go on through the hole like that, and then you're going to spin it around like this to lock it in place. But we're going to put this round spot with the 3 sides to it, whatever. This part here I'm going to put through the hole first. Then the bar will go through that hole, and then this just swivels over and snaps in place. So we gotta find our holes. This one looks like it's right there, and you can kind of see the arm lines up to that hole. So I'm going to snap that in place. Try not to break them. There we go, Jesus. All right, and then the bar goes through the hole, like I showed you. And you just swivel that piece over and it snaps in place, so it's, when you pull it, you can see this arm's moving. The other one is going all the way up in here, so it's right down in here in this hole. Put this one in. Okay. Plastic needs to bend up. It doesn't want to go on there. There we go. There we go. So now, let's test it out. Nice. And if we look at our window regulator, it is not spinning, so that should be the lock position then. Okay. Try our key in here again. Do it a quarter turn. And then, as you can see when I turn, it's turning the clutch all the time. It has to engage, but once it engages, it's good to go. So we'll go back to unlock it, just so we can get this window regulator in. Works pretty good. There's not a whole lot of issue with it not lining up. And I've got my 4 bolts for the window regulator. This part here is what's going to be against the clutch. So this is going to be facing in this orientation when I'm done. Because you've also got the wheels, the regulator, and they need to go in there. You know what? I jumped the gun on this one. I'm going to take that connector arm back off. I'm going to put this in there because this makes it a whole lot easier to manipulate this thing into position. So we're going to go in there like this. That's it. A bolt hole here, a bolt hole here, here, and here, and those match up better with what I got inside. That's the way it goes. That's much better. There. Now I can start putting some of these bolts in. So I have two down here in the corner of the regulator, and there's two that are right down here and right down here. I'm probably going to have to get a wrench for these. Bottom two I can get to pretty good. Top two looks like I'm going to need a smaller ratchet or a wrench. And then I'm going to put this thing back on before I forget about it. Connector rod back on. There we go. It's back on. Okay. Right. So next thing is going to be putting the window back in. Alright, so next thing I'm replacing, since I'm in here and I'm already taking all this stuff apart, one more screw, one more bolt, is I'm replacing the tracks for the window, and I probably didn't need to now that I think about it, but I'm replacing these tracks because as you can see, they are toast. So you're in here, you've got everything torn apart, you might as well just go and replace it with new. It's a buy once, cry once kind of thing. And I went ahead and labeled these from the part number so I wouldn't forget later and have to look it up again. I labeled them left hand and right hand. But again, what you do is just put them side by side, make sure they got the same holes, the same bolts, everything lines up, it's the same curvature, everything. So that one looks like that's good. This hole here and then this hole here is going to be for those two. So put this thing in here. I took this mechanism out because it seemed to me like it was in the way and it needed to come out, but it kind of doesn't now. So I don't know. I will get back to you, let you know the way this thing worked after I get all these connected. I already lost the bolt. Oh, there it is. Okay, that bolt's gonna go in there. There we go. The other bolt is gonna go in here, and I'm just gonna keep them loose until I get them all in place where I want it. One thing that I like to do is go and mount it right back where it was can kind of see where the bolt and the washer lined up in the past. Now I know this new piece may not be exactly the same, but it's usually a pretty good starting point to put it right back where it was. Sometimes you can even take a marker if you want and mark a line around it to show you where it was. So it kind of goes right back in the same place, because the last thing you don't want your window binding just going up and down, especially if you got an electric one. It's gonna wear your motor out a little bit faster. So we got that one back in. We'll go ahead and put this one back in. Probably didn't need to, but that's your mechanism that pulls from the inside handle. And when this is down like that, it pulls it back up. All right, now the window's going back in. And as you'll see on these cams, you'll see there's a bigger slot on this side and no slot on this side. This is the side that you're going to put into the rollers on the regulator. Then these two bolt holes are going to connect to the metal piece that's on the bottom of the window. So obviously these are going to have to go in like this. And then the part that's attached to the window is going to be overlapping this, because it's got a hole that is not threaded. These are threaded. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to get the window regulator moved down a little bit more. As you can see, it's kind of right in the middle. I'm going to try to move this one down a little bit more. As you can see, I'm cranking it here, and that's moving the window regulator. And I could go ahead and put these cams on right now. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put a little grease in here in those tracks. All right, grease is on there. Go ahead and put those cams on there and work them back and forth a little bit. Alright, now, window's going to go in. Leave them in there like that so they're a little bit pointed towards that direction. Alright. Mechanism works. My tracks are all in. Maybe a little bit tighter of a fit. One thing I am going to do, those tracks on the outside, I'm going to loosen them up just a little bit. Just so I'm not binding on this thing. And pushing too hard, because that's probably might end up breaking something. Just loosen them up just a little bit so they move around a little. As you can see them to the top, that should be a good position. All about there in the middle. Alright, we have to be careful with all the metal pieces, especially with nice paint. There we go. Slide it right on in. Get those cams underneath the windows. And you just slide them over. Slide those cams back and forth until you get them where you want it. Forget to tighten up my bolts for the side tracks. be it. There we go. It takes a second for the cam to come around and catch. Like I showed you before, it kind of spun. So it's about a half a turn. Let's see. It goes, yeah, half a turn before it engages the clutch again. So there's a second where it goes up and down. There we go, all done. New handle, new latches, new tracks. I'm gonna put on new weather stripping here in a minute after I get this all cleaned up. All right, so finally get it all back together. We got a new handle, we got our new clips for the latch release. We used the window regulator because it was functioning, and trying to save a couple bucks by not spending an extra 100 on that, but put new rivets on the rollers. Getting ready to put the weather stripping along here. I put the weather stripping along the outside here, and that's mainly because I just didn't want water getting in. It's kind of tight. I would advise putting the window back in before you do the weather stripping. I know it's kind of difficult with the window in the way, but it's pretty difficult too with the window, or with the outer weather strip in, and then trying to put that window in. It was okay, it was doable, but everything works. Everything functions properly. I'm gonna put this hatch back on, but first, oops. Last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to replace this weather stripping that goes along the outside. Mine was completely trashed. I'm going to make sure this one fits in here properly. It's got a little bit of a twist to it as well. Make sure that thing's untwisted. There we go. That piping was kind of twisted around there and didn't want to sit very flat, so make sure they got all that. So I'm gonna get some degreaser and a rag, and then I'm gonna clean off this top there, and I'm gonna use some glue. Best part is the glue where you're gonna connect it to, and then also spray glue on the rubber, just kind of like you're doing any weather stripping. We'll get that going here. Put this thing back on while we're waiting for that glue to tack up. So this is my first time doing this weather stripping. You can see it's one whole piece. This end with the pin goes. Looks like down in here, there's one of these metal clasps still in there that I need to pop those out, because those are probably going to stick in there just as I push those in. It's going to grab into, because this is the ones that are still in there. So I might think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get those out, clean it a little bit, and then maybe put some spray glue in there too, just as a little extra insurance. But I think that's good for now, so just keep on trucking. And this has the pins on the end, and I don't know why they're here. I'll take them off before I go. This cover just seems a little foolish. So, put this maybe all the way in that corner. All finished. Got the tailgate in, rubber, weather stripping for the tailgate is in, and I finally finished putting this on. It was a little bit of a chore, but I got it in there. You gotta get it all the way up, and this corner is real good. So it's almost like good to start like in the bottoms, get them centered, and then kind of work your way up. And then if you get a little bit in there, you'll kind of slide out. Get it in there. So that's all in. The window's functioning, you can see. Great. Tailgate works awesome. I need to adjust the strikers here and there. I can move those in and out a little bit because even with the new weather stripping, it still wiggles a little bit. So I can tighten that up. And also the body lines stick out a little bit here, so a little bit more fine adjustment, but project's complete. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Thank you.